We're speaking to Nazmeera Moolla, co-head of fixed income at Investec Asset Management. Welcome, Nazmeera.
Thank you.
Nazmeera, can you tell us what is the general response in the industry to Budget 2017?
The initial response that we've seen is the budget is viewed as fairly solid. The bond market hasn't moved very much. People think the Treasury's generally done a good job. We've seen some slippage in revenue assumptions going forward, so they expect to be collecting less money than they thought previously, so they're going to be issuing a bit more in the way of bonds. But other than that, it seems like a solid budget.
Can you tell me, has enough been done for us to retain our investment grade rating over the longer term?
I don't think the Treasury by itself can do what's needed for us to retain our investment grade rating over the longer term. I think they've done enough in this budget to give us a good chance to get us through June this year, provided a few other things fall into place.
Did Minister Gordon stick to the plan as set out in the medium-term budget policy?
Very much so. So if you look at the expenditure forecast, they're exactly in line with what was forecast in October. They've taken roughly 20 billion rand out of the expenditure plans that were previously forecast in February last year. The revenue forecast, as I mentioned a few moments ago, are a little bit behind. I think that's a good thing that they're being relatively conservative with the revenue forecasts, but as a result, we've seen the deficit numbers slip a bit over the course of the next 3 years.
Was there anything in this budget that surprised you?
I thought they would perhaps move the top income tax bracket to 43% instead of 45%, but other than that, there were no major surprises.
Something which also stands out is that a lot is being made with the 45% for those earning over 1.5 million rand per annum. It must also be said that on that, there's only 75,000 individuals who last year earned above 1.5 million. And that measure is only likely to raise around about 4.4 billion. Do you think that further tax hikes will be needed?
Well, the Treasury effectively hiked taxes for everyone this year. You know, we tend to think in nominal terms because our paycheck at the end of the month is a nominal amount, but inflation is eroding that all the time. So what we normally see in a budget is that there's some relief for the inflation impact. So that if people have moved from one tax bracket to the next just because they have had a wage increase to compensate for inflation, that is offset in the budget. If we had seen a full offset for inflation impact in this budget, there would have been 14.5 billion rands of tax relief. What we saw was 2.5 billion rands. So the Treasury has effectively implemented tax hikes on virtually everyone that pays income tax at this point in time, amounting to 12 billion rands. And that's a whole lot more than the 4.4 billion they're raising from the increase in the top tax bracket to 45%.
Nazmeera, what would you have liked to hear that wasn't in Budget 2017?
As an economist, the more efficient means to collect higher revenue would have been a VAT increase. There's a lot of concern that VAT could be regressive. The studies on South Africa have shown that given the number of items that are zero rated, lower income groups do not spend a higher proportion of their income on VAT than higher income groups. So it's not the case in South Africa. However, there just wasn't the political room to do that this year. So that was not a surprise to me. That was never really on the table. What I also would have liked to have seen is more in the way of expenditure cuts. I think there's a whole lot of money wasted in government through inefficient spending, through overstaffing in certain departments that could be channeled much more effectively. But that's another difficult political decision. So again, not a surprise that we didn't see it, but that's what I would have liked to see.
Thank you so much for your input, Nazmeera. It's very much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.